this morning to talk about everything sports. It's the Sideline Report on your hometown radio station, WPKY, The Tiger. All righty, we are transitioning from politics, from Tiger Talk, right into our Sideline Report, our sports report this morning. And I have Todd Griffin in studio. How are you?
Good. I can speak some politics if you'd like.
Yeah, well, now I've had about an hour, so I think let's just we've got a lot to talk about. We're running late today, and we thank you for being patient with us. We're on a little bit running a little bit late on the Sideline Report today, but that's okay because we got a great show for you, a huge show, lots to talk about, Todd.
Well, being busy is always a good thing, so it's good to have everything on the air, and glad to get my turn now. And just a big championship Thursday. There's a lot going on in sports, just like in the world of politics. We have a lot going on in the sports world. It's Championship Thursday and the All-A Classic.
Yes, indeed.
Of course, the NHL playoffs start tonight. Lots of comings and goings for the University of Kentucky basketball team. Emma Talley is playing another LPGA tournament this week. And, of course, perhaps the biggest thing on the agenda today is our top 5 favorite professional wrestlers that we'll get to a little later.
And I've already had a few folks preempt and send theirs in as well. So
oh, that's awesome.
And you can, if you want to play along, you can text us at 270-963-9038, and you can play along with us as we continue here on the Sideline Report. So take it away, Todd.
Well, the good thing is we've got our 5 favorite pro wrestlers this week, and then next week we're doing our 5 favorite tag teams. WrestleMania was just this past weekend, and I'm going to admit I didn't really watch, and I don't know who won anything, but from back in the day, I'm a big wrestling fan.
Yeah, it was been a long time.
Yeah.
I had to kind of dig back, and somebody might hear these names later and go, who's that? But I don't know. We'll see.
But first of all, the All-A Classic championships for the second region are tonight. Caldwell County's girls will be playing in the softball championship against Dawson Springs. That game is at 6 p.m. at Lyon County. The Caldwell County baseball team will try to repeat as second region champions at University Heights, playing the host Blazers at 6 o'clock tonight over in Hopkinsville. So, I hate that both are at the same time in different places. I mean, what can you do?
Yes.
But a big chance there. I think both Caldwell County teams should win. I mean, you never know. I mean, that's why we play the games.
That's
but
right.
I think it's a very good chance of both Caldwell County teams making the state tournament this year.
And, of course, the ladies will be in Owensboro. What are the dates on that?
The dates are April 28 and 29. The good thing is the All-A Classic state tournaments don't conflict.
Right.
They're on different weekends. And for the girls, the regional champions advance straight to the state tournament. They play pool play on Saturday, April 28th. That's at Jack Fisher Park in Owensboro. So not that bad a trip to go up there and watch that if Caldwell County gets in there. The Region 2 champion will play 3 games in pool play that first day, starting at 10:30 a.m. against the Region 4 champion, which is Russellville.
Okay.
They'll play again at 2 o'clock against the 7th Region champion. And I'm not sure how that region's going, but that's the smaller schools in Louisville. So, I think if it's Caldwell County representing the 2nd region, I think they would have a good chance to win that game. I think they'd be favored over Russellville in that first game. And then the last game of pool play for the 2nd region would be the 11th region. That's at 5:30 that first day, and that's probably going to be Lexington Christian. I don't think they've played their finals yet, but I think Lexington Christian will probably come out of there. The top 2 teams in each pool advance to single elimination play on Sunday, April 29th, and that starts at 9 a.m. that morning. The only problem with the All-A Classic State Softball Tournament, it seems to rain every year. So I'm not sure why they schedule it for a rainy weekend, but that's how it works out.
Well, we'll just have to see. It's going to rain this weekend. Of course, that's a couple weekends away now. So we'll just have to see. But, man, it's great. The ladies are playing great. The guys are playing great. They're getting great pitching, great hitting up and down the lineups, and it's just fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, the Lady Tigers beat Livingston 20-0 in the first round, then took out defending 2nd region champion Crittenden County 8-0 in the semifinals on Tuesday. And Dawson Springs has only played 2 games all year. They're kind of like the Lady Tigers, who've only played 4. They beat University Heights 18-8 in the first round, and then routed Fort Campbell in the semis 22-0 the other night. So, I think Caldwell County is the favorite for sure going into that game.
Katie
but
Franklin is pitching awful well.
Oh, and the defense played fantastic the other night.
Yeah. a little bit of wind, and we had several twisting balls out there. In the outfield, they were on top of those, got under them, and made them look routine. And
I think tonight's game will be a lot more comfortable for those of us, covering and watching, because it was a little chilly the other night, but.
I feel bad. I got a few comments about, man, you're going to have to bundle up out there, because I kept talking about coffee and chili dogs.
Oh, yeah.
But it's fun. It's definitely worth getting out there. But I think I've never been more cold at a game than I was the other night for some reason. I mean, I've been to football games in late fall.
Well, because you expect football to be cold and you dress warmly.
But you're old
when it's April, you're not really expecting.
No. Well, one night I didn't wear socks, but I had socks on. Oh, no. Yeah.
Always throwing an extra pair of socks.
Always.
That's the old trick. If you want to stay warm, extra socks.
Who gets the start tonight for the Tigers on the mound? Of course, Shane was masterful the other night in the semifinal.
A no-hitter, yeah.
Yeah, no-hitter, and he's on a roll here. I don't know. I saw some stats somewhere that just unhittable.
Well, his last two outings, he struck out 31 players, so it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think has allowed 2 hits over the last 2 games. So
and Katie Franklin right there with him in softball.
Oh yeah, 2 shutouts this week.
So, so I mean, boy, it's just when you have pitching like that and solid defense behind you, I mean, odds are really well you're going to win those games, and then you're hitting. So. And
I'm not sure about tonight. I think Gabe East will get the start. They could also go with Chase Felker.
Right.
They've got Noah Brown that could pitch. Bryce Thomas could pitch some.
Right, and when do they follow? Of course, they don't go right. They've got a break before they have to play these tournaments, but they go right back into their regular schedule. However,
right. Friday night they're at Lyon County,
it's
Friday night for the girls is Dawson Springs here, and that's a change on the schedule, but that's a district date. So basically, the Lady Tigers will play Dawson Springs tonight for the All-A Classic Championship.
And then turn right around and play them in the regular season.
Yeah. Tomorrow night here, if everything works out right.
Right.
A big game tonight for the Tiger baseball team against University Heights Academy. I think the Tigers are the better team. However, UHA has their ace ready to go tonight. That's Drew McGowan.
Right.
He gave the Tigers fits in the second region tournament opening round last year down at Crittenden County.
Yes.
We mentioned before the Tigers were lucky to get out of there with a win and get back to the state tournament again. I don't think overall University Heights is anywhere near as strong, 1 through 9. But McGowan is good enough,
If they got a solid pitching performance from Mr. McGowan.
He's going to Mississippi State, so he's pretty good. And, again, we've seen in the past that he can give anybody some fits. And, one pitcher on one day can make or break a baseball team. But
it certainly can.
You just feel like if the Tigers can put the ball in play, make University Heights have to make some plays defensively, that I just don't know if defensively UHA is anywhere near the level that Caldwell County is. Caldwell County, I would think, would be the big favorite. Just the variable, I guess, is McGowan pitching for UHA kind of evens things up.
Yeah, and if you watch high school softball or baseball, what you see more of either base running errors or defensive plays where a ball gets thrown away, they make a throw that they either should not have thrown or it can't be handled, by whoever they throw it to, or the throw's errant. So
how many close games in baseball with, a really good team against a really good team comes down to one team making a mistake?
That's right.
It's
a game of inches.
It's a 1-0 game or a 2-1 game, and if you boot a ball or throw a ball away,
pass ball.
That's the ball game.
Yeah. And that's just that's what makes the game I think so great, though. It's it's right there.
It's always on the line.
It's always on the line.
And there's a difference in the baseball All-A Classic setup in that the region champions don't advance straight to state. There will be a sectional game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So last year we went down to Carlisle County and won that game. The good thing is this year, if the Tigers win the second region, they will host the first region champion, so we don't have to make that trip. I'm not really sure who the favorite is to come out of the first region. I know they've had their tournament going this week. But
yeah, they have, and I'm trying to – I've got the scores over here.
But, they'll have to schedule that game just where it works in for both teams. The All-A Classic State Tournament is May 5th and 6th at Whitaker Bank Ballpark in Lexington. And that Region 1, Region 2 champion, whoever comes out of that subsectional, will play at 2:30 Eastern Time that first day. against the Region 11, Region 12 winner.
Okay, that you said that first day.
That first day.
Is that the 4th on Friday?
That's the 5th.
That's the 5th and 6th.
Yes, it's the 5th and 6th.
Okay.
Which is Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
So that first game is on that Saturday. The first round's on Saturday. Again, you take 8 teams to state. The semifinals will then be played Sunday morning, and the championship game Sunday afternoon in Lexington. Last year, the Tigers won that first game in 8 innings. I think beat Bishop Brossart.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The next game, they came back and won in 8 innings over Lexington Christian.
That's right.
And then the Sunday afternoon championship game went 10 innings.
Holy Cross.
Against Louisville Holy Cross, and the Tigers came out on the short end of a 5-3 score. Of course, a lot of us are still, a little upset over a call down the line where the Tigers hit the ball a foot inside the line, and it was called foul by the first base umpire that, quite frankly, was more important about who was yelling at him in the stands than getting his calls right. But, hey, that's ancient history.
Yeah.
And we only have another, 45 minutes of show today, so I can't give my complete thoughts on that.
Well, it's not bad. Carlisle County defeated St. Mary last night, and Murray beat Mayfield down the first.
Okay, wow.
So it looks like it's Carlisle and Murray probably, I guess, for the championship game. I guess they'll play that tonight.
I'm not really sure because there are a lot of Class A schools in the first region, so they have to play a while to get their region finished.
And that might just be, so it might be later on before we know who comes out of there. So. But anyway, that was the score last night.
And the great thing is they have to come here, assuming Caldwell County wins tonight. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but
still gotta play some baseball.
If the Tigers beat UHA, they will host that sectional game. It'll be at the VFW ballpark, and at that point, it's just kind of up to the two schools to get together and find a mutual date to play that sectional game.
Okay. Well, good luck to our Tiger teams as they look to take these championships. Really.
Oh, absolutely.
I would say that if they get into the state tournament, then they've got as good as they've got a good shot as anybody.
Well, we saw last year with baseball, and the Tigers got on such a roll up there. Momentum and being on a roll and having confidence and playing well, that all goes hand in hand.
Right.
And the Tigers won the region, and the year before that they were upset in the first round. So, I think they were hungry to win that regional.
Definitely.
And then they really went down to Carlisle County and played well, got a great pitching performance from Ty Ramey, and won that game 10-0, and they just rolled right up to state. Like I said, you get a 1-0 win, I think it was, in the first round. And the second round was either 2-1 or 3-2 in extra innings. And then that championship game that just kept on going. And it really felt like, if you were there, that the Tigers were kind of on that magical run to a state championship. And it just kind of got derailed. And, that's sports sometimes. That things happen that you can't control. And that's just part of it.
Just part of it. It certainly is. Well, we will cover the boys' game tonight from University Heights, and we'll be on the air shortly before 6 o'clock, and Bob Hayes will bring you the call tonight.
I think I will be at softball tonight, and Gary Goodacre, I believe, will be making sure we keep tabs of things at baseball, too. So hopefully we'll have a lot of good stuff for Saturday's paper for the sports section.
I'm sure you will. That'd be great. Where else we going, man?
Well, there's lots of things to choose from. Of course, Emma Talley is playing in the Lotte Championship out in Hawaii. I mean, that's a rough gig, but somebody's got to do it, I guess.
Somebody's got to do it, I guess. Not a bad first round. I mean, she shot a 74, and, of course, this is a Wednesday through Saturday.
Yeah, a little rare that they started on Wednesday. But
I about forgot about it this morning. I said, I better check that score.
And she actually played well outside of 2 holes. She had double bogeys on 10 and 11. Outside of that, she's 2 under.
Right.
The leader going into the second day is 5 under. So that's how close those things are.
Yes.
You start looking at these golf tournaments, and sometimes you're 3 or 4 shots out of the lead. You're also 3 or 4 shots out of not making the cut.
Right.
So that's how tight it is. And I think she's playing well. She will tee off today at 1:12 Hawaii time, which is 6:12 this evening Central Time.
Okay. I didn't do the calculation, but I figured it was somewhere around 5 or 6 o'clock when I saw it. So.
Well, you know how I am about those things, and Hawaii is one of those states that doesn't do the daylight savings time, so typically they are 4 hours behind us, but during the summer they're 5 hours.
That's right.
That's my lesson for the day.
There you go.
Emma was tied for 49th going into the second round. Golf Channel's live coverage begins at 6 o'clock. Emma tees off at 6:12, so maybe a chance for some TV time, especially if she can inch up the standings a little bit early.
Probably right there when there's coverage starts, group or two right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's good.
So good luck to her. And several things going on. We mentioned the NHL playoffs starting tonight. My Blues did not make it.
And they were close, weren't they?
They were really close. They just had to win the last game and
needed some points.
Had a call go against them.
Really?
So I'm going to complain about all the officiating. Well, one of the Avalanche's goals came after it appeared they were offside. The puck came back out of the zone. At least that's what it looked like if you were a Blues fan. If you're an Avalanche fan, hey, that puck is still touching, so it's still in.
Did they zoom down on
they
it?
replayed it. They showed it. Again, it depends on which side of the fence. I thought it was out. Should have been offside. No goal, but
the goal stuck.
It stood, and the Avalanche went on to beat the Blues, which means the Avalanche will be in Nashville tonight to take on the top-seeded Nashville Predators in the first game of the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
What a hockey town Nashville's become.
Yeah, it's weird.
Isn't that amazing?
When they first got the Predators, I was like, pro hockey will never work in Nashville. What are they thinking?
Man, they lobbied so hard for that. I remember, listening to KDF. I mean, it was every day.
Oh, yeah.
They were having a blast with it. And look at the fan base they have. And not only there, but, they draw from Alabama. They draw from Kentucky. They draw, it's a huge thing.
Well, and you think it's not that long ago that Nashville had zero major sports franchises, and now you look and they've got the Titans, the NFL. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than the NFL as far as the sports, and the Predators. Like I said, I'm just amazed at how Nashville has embraced that entire organization.
The Legends League coming too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really?
From what I understand. Anyway,
that'll be interesting.
Yeah, we won't touch on that one.
But Predators start tonight, 8:30. It's on NBC Sports Network. Not sure why they're starting so late. I had this issue with the NHL playoffs last year. I'm like in the Central Time Zone. You start at 8:30. If the game goes overtime or a couple of overtimes, you're playing at midnight. It's worse than the NCAA planning some of those tournament games at ridiculous times when you have student athletes and you're playing games at 9 or 9:30, starting them at those times and getting them over by midnight. But again,
I got a question for you.
Maybe that's
here.
me.
This one's interesting.
Okay.
And it comes in from Bruce Moose.
Okay.
It says, looking at your All-A second region schedule, why was UHA's first-round game in March allows them to throw McGowan in 2 or 3 of the games?
Yeah, I thought that was a little unfair. I'm not sure why they were allowed to do that. The original schedule did not have it that way. Mm-hmm. Supposedly, everybody plays their first-round dates the same day, and then you play the semifinals the same day because of pitching.
Right.
It doesn't mean as much in softball, but in baseball it means everything.
Sure it does.
If you stretch those things out, if you were Caldwell and could play your 3 games, 1 week, the next week, and the next week, well, you could pitch Shane Burns in all of those, and, you're a whole lot better team with your number 1 on the mound than you are if you're got your number 2 or number 3 out there. So I'm not really sure why they were able to do that.
That's pretty interesting. I mean, that really is. I mean, it's a great question. Bruce.
And not just that, but when you look at both draws, I mean, UHA's teams got fabulous draws anyway. I mean, if you look at both baseball and softball, one side of the bracket is stacked. If you look at softball, the 3 best teams in it, in my opinion, were Caldwell, Crittenden, and Lyon. Well, Crittenden and Lyon played each other. And then Caldwell's in that side of the bracket too. And the other side of the bracket, you have 3 teams that
you're exactly
kind of look weak this season. And if you look at baseball, UHA is on the same side with Fort Campbell and Dawson Springs, which if you were ranking the teams would be ranked toward the bottom. And then you've got Caldwell, which the defending champion is actually ranked among the state's top 20 overall teams. Right. You've got Lyon County, which has a good team this year. You got Livingston Central. Crittenden County gave Caldwell County some fits in the first round. So
they did. I mean, that was a pretty except for some of the errant throws and some of the errors that they made. The pitching kept them in there pretty well.
But I'll be honest, sometimes the All-A stuff looks like kind of like our show. It just kind of gets made up as it goes along.
That's an excellent point that you make there, Todd. It certainly is. It just kind of goes with the flow, doesn't it? Great.
So that's my best answer for that is I don't really know. I'm not sure why they were allowed to do that.
That's a good answer. I like it. That's awesome.
I mean, I like the All-A Classic for what it does for the small schools.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for Caldwell County, after this season, they're going to be out of the All-A at least for a year. Right. You know, it's very possible that Caldwell County could play in the 2A championship next year, which is just for basketball, which, I mean, again, the 2A thing is fantastic, but it's going to be a few years before they get the other sports involved. So if you're Caldwell going into that next year, it's really just for basketball. Right. So, you know, your baseball and softball. And here's the thing, the Lady Tigers looking ahead to next year would be loaded for that All-A because Caldwell has one senior this year. Right. You know, I think they're going to have a really good year this year. Could be even better next year. So, you know, that's unfortunate. But the way the Lady Tigers are looking, maybe they could challenge Madisonville in the district this year, and maybe they could be right there in the big second region tournament at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah, and, of course, we saw them play them tough at home last year, had them on the ropes, you know. And they
took a lead to the seventh inning before the Big Bats came out from Madisonville, and they rallied to win. But
I mean, I turned around and I go, what inning is this? And then, you know, we're in the late innings, and we're ahead. And
I think it was 6-4 going to the seventh, and maybe Madisonville scored 5 times in the seventh.
Just sort of opened up.
Maybe hit a couple of home runs, and I mean, the team Madisonville had last year, and they're still really good this year.
Yeah, they are. But they're in the top 5, aren't they? In the state?
I think so. And they lost a girl that's at Alabama,
right?
And I think lost a girl that's now at Kentucky.
Yeah.
And they're still ranked in the top 5. Yeah. So that's a pretty strong program.
That's pretty strong. It certainly is. But good luck to our teams tonight. It's going to be great.
Oh, absolutely. And again, if you just look at it on paper, I think the Caldwell County teams are favored in both of those. Still got to go do it, but...
How did the Preds do tonight over the Avalanche?
I think the Preds handled the Avalanche pretty easily.
You think they escaped?
As a matter of fact, I really thought if St. Louis got in, they were in trouble against the Predators. I mean, Nashville just looks awfully strong. However, you know, we talk about momentum a lot, and if you're the Avalanche, you can go in and steal one of those first 2 games. Maybe you can steal a little momentum and go home and, in front of your crowd, make a series out of it.
Yeah,
we've seen 8s beat 1s. As a matter of fact, that's what the Predators did last year.
That's right. That's exactly.
You know, they were the 8th seed in that game. They were actually the 16th seed overall.
Overall, weren't they? Yeah.
And still made the Stanley Cup Finals where they lost to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well, ought to be a fun Stanley if you're into hockey, you know. And I know there's a lot of Predators fans here in town. You know, a lot of folks going down.
And playoff hocky.
It's different. Yeah.
It's different than regular season hockey.
And if you've never been there live, it's totally different than watching on TV.
It is. But for the playoffs, it gets ramped up, and I mean, you know, the checks are a little harder. The guys skate a little faster. There's a little more edge to it.
Oh yeah.
I love the fact that when they go to overtime to have the extra periods, that you're there till somebody scores.
Oh yeah.
You know. I've actually sat there and watched, you know, we're in the 3rd overtime, and, you know, it's great because, I mean, every play is the difference between winning and losing the game and maybe winning and losing the series.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're getting texts of wrestlers.
All right.
They're coming in, so can't.
Well, maybe we need to be moving in that direction. Maybe we need to.
Oh, already there. Yeah, we're going to go a little over today because
okay.
we'll go a little over today. We won't keep it at 10 o'clock. We went a little long. It's just, you know, it's
that was good though. I mean, you know, it was good to have.
It was. It was. It's a lot of things going on at the state level in our government that people need to hopefully try to get educated on.
But before we start our top 5 favorite pro wrestlers of all time, I have to ask you: does your list include Cheeseburger, Shark Boy, or Andy Kaufman?
No, Andy Kaufman is dear to my heart, and
oh yeah, me too.
I loved the era when he and Jerry the King were going at it. I mean,
that was wrestling.
That was wrestling.
Yeah.
That's right. And you know, I about slashed him. I do have a wrestler on there that's related to that. I mean,
okay.
How can you not? Because I watch a lot of Memphis wrestling. Because I'm not much
Oh,
of a
yeah.
WWE guy. Mine's more Memphis. Than I grew up in Florida, because we had Florida wrestling too. And some of those guys crossed over. They travel a southern circuit,
Right.
so to speak.
But yeah, the Mid-South Coliseum is like
exactly.
a shrine
Yeah.
to professional wrestling.
In Orlando, Florida, it's Eddie Graham Sports Arena. That's
Oh,
where
wow.
When I was a kid, Eddie Graham Sports Arena was the big thing, but that was in Orlando. But yeah, I mean, I do have a relationship there, and I want to just put Slash Kaufman there.
Okay.
I still go back and watch the old Letterman clips. I love them.
Oh, yeah.
And I really think, before we get into this, I really think that in the end, Jerry the King and Kaufman were actually pretty good buddies. Weren't they?
Oh, yeah, I think they were in on it from the beginning.
They were, yeah.
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 Well, that's wrestling.
That's wrestling.
Well, which one of us is it? Me? I think it's.
I think it's you. Let's go on. We're here. We might as well go right into it.
Okay.
We've got some additions.
Oh, yeah.
We've got some input from outside here too. So.
And nobody is wrong with their top 5 favorite wrestlers. It's favorite wrestlers. We're not ranking who we think the best of all time. Just our favorites.
Just our favorite. Yeah, that's right. We're not really ranking them. And give me 3 more, Redfern. You got me 2. We're doing 5. So if you want in, give me 3 more.
Okay, so I've got a tie at number 5. Sorry to do that to everybody, but first one is Bret the Hitman Hart.
Okay.
He was one of my favorite wrestlers growing up. I mean, he was the Hitman. I mean,
yeah. Was that Memphis wrestling?
That was actually WWF.
That was WWF. Okay.
Back in the day.
Back in the day. Okay.
And Mick Foley. All of his characters, whether it was Cactus Jack, Mankind, Dude Love, when he was just Mick Foley.
Oh, you're way over my head, man.
Anytime Mick Foley was in a match,
there you go.
Something crazy was about to happen, and you just couldn't wait to watch.
No. I mean that's awesome, and you're way over my head here because I'm not much WWF. I took an easy way out, and somebody might be surprised it's my number 5, but. Woohoo! Ric Flair. You know what's so funny about that? I've got a buddy over in North Carolina who is a wrestling referee at the high school level, some college level. He actually had to throw Ric Flair out of an arena one time because Ric's son was wrestling, and didn't like a call. So this referee, this friend of mine, threw Ric Flair out of the arena, and so Ric Flair. The blonde locks, you just gotta like the attitude, and just what a classic.
Well, and if you saw the 30 for 30 on ESPN about Ric Flair, his wrestling persona was actually Ric Flair, pretty much. I mean, that was him.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The guy's lucky to be alive.
He is the Ozzy Osbourne of professional wrestling.
No doubt about it. That's
okay,
good.
My number 4 is Hulk Hogan. I know some people don't like him. Some people think he's great. I figured I had to have him on my list, and I really thought about it. But Hulk Hogan is responsible for 2 of the greatest moments ever in professional wrestling, again, in my opinion. Number 1 is at WrestleMania 3 when he slammed Andre the Giant in probably one of the most anticipated matches ever.
I still go back and watch that one.
I mean...
That's pretty amazing that he picked that guy up.
Oh, yeah, and there's actually an Andre the Giant documentary that's on HBO right now that I caught the last half of the other night, and it was awesome, and I'm just waiting now to get to see the first half of it because they talk to Hulk Hogan a lot, and they talk about that WrestleMania 3 match, and Hogan, all the way up until that match, didn't know if Andre was going to put him over. And he didn't know the finish. He kept asking Andre how they were going to finish it, and Andre would basically say, "Don't worry, boss. We got it, boss. Don't worry about it. It'll be okay."
So he didn't know.
And he actually mapped out the match on a legal pad for Vince McMahon, and he gave it to Andre the Giant, and Hogan didn't know, at least he said in the documentary, until they got in the ring, and Andre started doing the moves as he had mapped them out. If Andre was on board with the entire, putting Hulk Hogan over in that match, and said he left the finish open.
Wow.
And that he didn't know until the end how the match was going to finish, or even if, again, Andre was going to let him win that match. So it's kind of fun. And the other one is...
wrestling improvisation.
Yeah. And the other big moment, I think, is from WWE, WWF to WCW. I think it was at Bash at the Beach or Clash of the Champions, one of those, where Hulk Hogan comes out and turns heel and joins the Outsiders and forms the New World Order.
If you ever watched the New World Order,
if you ever watched the Monday Night Wrestling Wars, the NWO
Yeah.
was everything, and
The
that
New
was
World
Hulk
Order.
Hogan. So
That's exactly right. He did. He flipped and went bad. But I think
Yeah.
that disappointed a lot of people, I think, in the Hulkster.
it did. But I mean, you could only create that iconic moment by having somebody like the Hulkster, who for years
Go
had
to
talked
the dark
about,
side.
say your prayers, take your vitamins, all those things.
My little buddies.
Yes. and then he comes out and basically tells all the fans, that, well, what he said. And, and then went to the dark side and became, the face of one of the greatest heel organizations ever in professional wrestling.
Yes.
So
awesome.
That's why I've got him at 4.
I've got Dirty Dutchman Mantell.
Oh, yeah.
The Dirty Dutchman. Dutch Mantell, my number 4. And everybody out there, I mean, I'm looking at several lists here. We'll get to everybody else's lists too, as well. I think he's made a few lists now. He might be on yours, but I don't know yet. But that's my number 4.
He didn't make mine. If we'd gone 10,
maybe.
I was going to have some guys on there, but, we'd take up the whole day if we went 10. So, okay, so we're at number 3,
Mine's
right?
pretty undramatic. Mine's not very dramatic. It's just.
Well, you've already mentioned my number 3, and it's Ric Flair.
Yeah.
And I mean, what do you say?
What do you say about the guy?
Going back to Hulk Hogan, I think it was the Ric Flair documentary on ESPN where they talked to Hogan. It could have been something else, but they asked him who was the better wrestler, and Hogan said, "Oh, Ric Flair was twice the wrestler I am." So I mean.
Man, that's amazing to hear that from that guy.
Yeah.
You think he was egomaniac.
Yeah.
know? But what a specimen of a guy he was, though, the Hulk, and Flair too. But I mean, the Hulk just just unbelievable.
But Ric Flair could put anybody over. To me, that's the sign of a great professional wrestler.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, anybody can get out there and make themselves look good. It's getting out there and make the other guy look good, which is selling the show.
Exactly.
That makes you.
And
Flair could wrestle anybody.
That's what it is. It's selling the show.
Yes.
And especially there, that is the show. But yeah, I mean. Yeah, it has to go down as all-time greats. My number 3 is Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Wow.
Just got to love the kilt.
Yeah.
And I think he and Ric Flair are like best friends, from what I understand. Wasn't he mentioned in the documentary? I think.
I don't remember.
They really before he died, maybe they'd had a falling out or something. And I don't know. It's been a while since I saw it, but I really liked Rowdy Roddy Piper.
I think Piper's Pit was like the first of those kind of,
Piper's Pit, yeah.
In-ring talk things.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Because that was one of the things that actually set up that Andre the Giant Hulk Hogan
match,
rivalry.
Yeah.
And so as we get to my number 2, it's Rowdy Roddy Piper. There we go.
We're close. we're close, yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's one of my favorites. I mean, there would be no Hulk Hogan without Roddy Piper.
No, I think you're right.
I mean, he helped. He was the heel that put all those guys over.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And then I'm going number 2, Jerry the King Lawler.
Yes.
He's my number 2 guy. He was on the national stage again with Andy Kaufman. That put Memphis on the map. I mean, from Saturday Night Live to the talk show circuits in New York to
that was one of the things that kind of put professional wrestling on the map. It was that, and when Hulk Hogan appeared in the Rocky movie.
Exactly.
I mean, those kind of things. Yeah, those are the things that kind of made professional wrestling mainstream for a while.
It did, and then you had some geniuses at the executive level and the producing level who, cable TV and everything else, and then just put the shows together, and it just became a masterful show.
Well, to me, the thing about wrestling back then is it was still perceived. I mean, we knew it was mostly coordinated, that outcomes were predetermined, but there was still that real, quote-unquote, aspect about it. It was still real to us.
I guarantee you get in there, you're going to get slapped.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't do it right, you're going to get hurt.
Today's wrestling almost seems like it's just more, a bunch of spots they made up, high-flying spots for a match. And back then it was still at least presented as real competition, even though, we knew better, but at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know what changed. I'm kind of interested in seeing these women's, you've got Ronda Rousey now.
Oh, yeah.
And then you see this great rivalry. And from what I understand and what I've read, she's loving it compared to, she'll probably never get back into the circle.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fine. So it's probably the best thing. But what a way to resurrect your career. You go from what she was doing into wrestling.
And it's certainly a physical business to get into.
No doubt about it.
Those guys get beat up, and
And if you mess up in there in those matches, you're going to get hurt.
Well,
you're probably going to hurt a little bit anyway.
Not just yourself, but if you mess up, you
Somebody
risk
else,
hurting the other guy, and
That's right.
that's one thing that professional wrestlers are kind of responsible for the safety of the other guy in the ring too. I mean, you have to work together.
That's right.
To theoretically make sure no one gets hurt, but a lot of those bumps are real. And Hulk Hogan actually said that. I read this in a story the other day when I was reading about the Andre the Giant documentary, and Hulk Hogan basically said, if pro wrestling's fake, nobody ever told me.
Right.
So that's a pretty good quote.
No, I think that is a good quote because, I mean, those guys are in there. They're working hard, and they're entertaining, and, yeah, there's a risk that you're going to get hurt, especially when you're falling out of rings, getting hit in the back with chairs. I mean, it's coordinated somewhat, but it's still if you don't do it right, you're going to get hurt.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can plan a punch to the face, but it still hurts when somebody hits you. I mean,
exactly.
Whether you know it's coming or not.
Exactly.
Okay, we're up to number one, right?
I think you're at your number one. Because no, you had Jerry two. Who you have her two? Did you have the same thing?
Roddy Piper.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes, we're at number one.
So we're at number one,
Yep.
and Jerry the King Lawler. If I'd had 6, I would put him on there. He would have been like my next guy. But number one, when we started this list, I had my 1 and 2 right away, and number one was easy for me, and it's a former St. Louis Cardinals baseball hand, Randy Macho Man Savage.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Randy Poffo actually played in the St. Louis Cardinals baseball organization, played for the Reds also, I believe, but we all know him as the Macho Man.
The Macho Man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Man, that and I don't know why he didn't make my list because, man, every time the guy came on, you just had, wherever if you're in the other room, whether you want to come in here to hear what he said because it was so animated and fun to watch. I mean, his veins would pop out in his neck, and he had those dang glasses on, and the hair going wild. It was, I mean,
and again,
awesome.
though, you talk about the success of Hulk Hogan, who I think probably is the most successful professional wrestler ever, maybe the biggest name ever. Macho Man was part of that. I mean, he and Rowdy Roddy Piper helped build that Hulk Hogan thing. You couldn't have Hulk Hogan without having,
Well, when you got plastic figures with your name, you've made it.
Oh, yeah.
Because this guy never did make it as big as my number one. But I loved him because he had a Bosonic. He had a Bosonic elbow.
Oh, I was going to say.
He had a Bosonic elbow, and it had a lisp like this, and he had bleach blonde hair.
Oh, yeah, he was the greatest.
Dusty Rhodes is my number one. Because.
And is it the polka dot outfit?
Yeah, man. And I mean, he didn't have the body of Hulk Hogan, but Dusty was probably chugging beers and eating pizza all weekend, But he was Southern. I grew up in the South. He was Southern. He was cool. I love the accent, and man, he was just my wrestler. That's all it was to it.
He dined with kings and queens, and he dined on pork and beans. That's Dusty.
I love it. Oh, that's classic. But yeah, Dusty Rhodes, the Bosonic elbow. That was my favorite. And we've got lots of folks. Let's go. Let's share.
That was a great list, by the way.
Yeah, well, yours was too, and we've got some other great lists out here, and lots that we left off here. Will Brown says Tojo Yamamoto, the Fabulous Moolah, George the Animal Steel, Coco Beware, and of course he's got Dusty Rhodes, but I guess he did that before. Here's David Schultz. Number 5, David's got Hulk Hogan. 4, he's got Dirty Dutch Mantel. 3, Bill Dundee. Those are similar lists. 2, he's got Triple H. And 1, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Honorable mention, Tojo Yamamoto.
Oh, yeah.
And Stone Cold Steve Austin, there we go. There's one that we didn't even talk about.
Well, he would have been right. Again, if we'd had a top 10, he'd have been on my top 10. Like The Rock. I thought about The Rock, but, he kind of got out of the wrestling business and became a big movie star. So I think if he had stayed in the wrestling business longer, I probably would have had The Rock on there.
Yeah. I mean, Dennis Stevens chimes in. Number 5, Fabulous Ones. 4, Freebirds. He gets tag teams 4 and 5. He's got in parentheses. So Freebirds, Fabulous Ones. Randy Savage at number 3. There's a great one.
Yeah.
Jerry Lawler, and number 1 for Dennis is Ric Flair.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's difficult to have a list and not have Ric Flair on there.
Everybody's got Ric Flair. Jason Redfern. He's got, and he didn't label his. He's got Dutch Mantel. He's got Ric Flair. He's got Tojo Yamamoto, the Road Warriors, and Macho Man, of course. And then he also included Jeff Jarrett, but he said Macho Man probably is a notch above Jarrett. So, And let's see who else. So Chris Ramey's chimed in here. Let's see what he's got.
Nobody's got the great Muda.
I don't know if everybody's got the great mood on there. Chris Ramey has the Iron. His text includes the Iron Sheik and of course Randy Poffo. He's got the baseball card, young macho man.
Oh yeah.
So he's got two there. The Iron Sheik. Forgot about the Iron Sheik.
Yeah.
And so let's see if anybody else has chimed in on these. I don't know. I think I've got everybody there. I hope I did. Let me just make sure. Okay. Here's one more. Somebody has chimed in. They don't have 5 of them. They got Superfly Snuka and Iron. No, that's Mike Long. He just mentioned Superfly Snuka.
Yeah,
Mike Long. So thank you.
I enjoyed him too. Again, you start trying to get it down to 5. It's really tough. You leave a lot of guys off. Well,
the thing is, these guys were all entertainers. They all entertained us as kids. Some of them are still entertaining.
Oh yeah.
Us and it was a good way, especially on a Saturday afternoon or whenever you watched me, or maybe it got prime time eventually, to just sort of check out and not have any worries. That's what sports does best. But that I think is the brilliance behind professional wrestling. You could really check out.
I'm waiting for an Arn Anderson reference. Any of that?
No, I don't know. But hey, listen here. Yeah, Mike Oliphant down in Florida, listening in Florida. Hey, thanks, Mike. Harley Race. Remember Harley Race?
Yes, absolutely.
And the Bristol brothers.
Yeah.
I loved Dusty Rhodes and Harley Race were always going at it down at Florida Championship Wrestling. Dusty Rhodes was always talking about Harley Race. I'm going to get a Harley Race. I love doing Dusty Rhodes, by the way. I think I do him pretty good. Ricky the Steamboat as well.
Yeah, Ricky the Dragon.
Ricky the Dragon, yeah. It is fun. We can go on forever about this stuff. I mean, and it's amazing? It's blowing up the text line. Oh. These wrestlers are blowing up the text line.
Well, we need to give some love to the old ECW wrestlers because that was crazy stuff. And Rob Van Dam in ECW was one of my favorite wrestlers. Now, when he got to WWE and they tamed him down a little bit, it wasn't the same. It
wasn't quite as fun, was it?
But he was flying all over the arena and jumping into trash cans and pounding people. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was. And we can't – remember Jimmy Hart, the old
Absolutely.
villain? I mean, you got to love Jimmy Hart.
Running around with a megaphone yelling at everybody.
Yeah. And Paxson the Claw. Do you remember that name?
I don't remember that one.
That's from Mike Oliphant in Florida. So Paxson the Claw, I don't remember him. I'll have to look him up. But the thing about this is that
and nobody has mentioned Sting.
No, nobody's mentioned Sting. Nobody, and I mean, you're talking about
that's like a Hall of Famer.
And he turned the wrestling world upside down. He was kind of this young guy that came in and had the flat top haircut and the little bit of paint on the face.
It was Sting. He started with the Ultimate Warrior. Nobody's mentioned the Ultimate Warrior.
Nobody's mentioned that. What about the White Tiger? Will Brown says. Oh man, we could go on and on, but this is fun stuff. And, and as you can see, this crosses generations now. I mean, wasn't there an Evansville wrestling? Was there a local Evansville?
I can't remember
because some of the local TV stations had kind of their own little setups. And that's how a lot of this stuff got started. It was a regional kind of thing, and then it sort of.
I remember watching. It was Bill Dundee and Lawler and all those guys.
Right.
Dutch Mantell.
And you had great announcers. Lance Russell,
who just died about a year ago, I think. Yeah.
Gordon Soley was our announcer in Florida, and then of course. Bobby the
Brain Heenan.
Yeah, I mean,
Gorilla Monsoon. Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yeah, I mean, those names will live in infamy. Oh yeah. Dave Brown and Lance Russell. Yeah, Dave Brown, Lance Russell. That's the team there. Thank you, Will. I forgot about Dave Brown. So, we grew up. I mean, my brother and I grew up doing these skits. We'd go outside and we'd be wrestlers. We'd wrestle each other, and I'd be somebody and he'd be somebody. And, you come down on people, and just fun stuff. So thank you all that have chimed in, and if you want to continue to chime in, that's fine. We're going to move on.
And we just scratched the surface. I
mean, we did. I mean, you could go on and on about this, but the neat thing is that it became a huge business where it kind of started regionally. And
that's all it was originally, was just each regional organization, and it was the McMahons, I think, that kind of brought that all together
to the next level,
and took it nationally.
Yeah. And continues to transform. And, of course, the McMahons now are back in the football business.
Yeah, Vince is. Yeah. I mean, his own money, the XFL is going to start in 2020 again we'll see how that goes. There's a couple of other upstart football leagues coming, so
yeah,
we could have our fill of spring football in a couple of seasons.
Yep, I'm still holding out for the Legends. So
well, I wish somebody would bring back the USFL.
I do too.
That was my favorite other league.
That was one of mine too, and and I think it probably had the best chance of competing with the NFL. But of course, it wasn't competing, but it could be comparable.
But next week, tag teams, top 5 tag teams of all time.
So get ready, guys, that have chimed in. We're going to do
my list
tag
may
teams.
be a little more colorful next week with the tag teams.
I'm going to have to do some research on the tag teams. I really am. So, but yeah, we're going to stick with the wrestling thing because it has been fun to hear your feedback and for you all to be a part of it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fun stuff.
And as we transition now to something non-professional wrestling.
I don't know if I can calm down. My adrenaline's up. I feel like a wrestler.
Well, we talked last week about the Kentucky Wildcats and what we thought some of them may do. Well, the picture is becoming a little clearer on that front. And, of course, as usual, there's going to be a big turnover on that UK basketball roster. Yeah. I think this is just,
tip of the iceberg here is what you're talking about.
One of those things every spring where we talk about, what's the UK basketball team going to look like. But, we said that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was probably gone. He has confirmed that. We said Kevin Knox was probably gone, although there was a small chance he might come back, but he's going to hire an agent. He's gone. P.J. Washington has announced for the draft but has not hired an agent, so he could come back. We actually found out that Nick Richards is coming back, so that's a big guy that will be back for a sophomore season. A couple of guys are transferring. Ty Wynyard, I think we mentioned that last week, had left the program. Sasha Kalea-Jones is going to leave the program. And, some of those things are just inevitable because Kentucky got commitment last week from another big 5-star, 6'10", E.J. Montgomery. That's the 4th 5-star player they have coming in for next year. So if you're on this roster, and you see these guys coming in that are going to take roster spots, just because you played this year doesn't mean you have a spot next year.
And that's how it works.
And we've talked a lot about how Calipari puts together these incredible rosters where he's got 10 or 12 guys that could play for anybody, but he only typically wants to play 7 or 8 of them.
Yeah.
So you might be the most heralded recruit from wherever. If you don't make that 7 or 8 guy rotation,
you'll be on the bench.
Yeah, you get to watch from the bench. So, that's kind of tough. And
do you take your chances on the bench at UK, hoping somebody gets hurt or you get in from time to time?
Well, that's the thing, though.
Yeah.
In the past, you would sit on the bench and wait for your turn.
That's right.
But because there's a brand new class of 4 or 5 5-star players coming in every year, you may never get your turn.
That's right.
So, and that's when you look at Hami Diallo. What's he going to do? I think he will probably go pro, but in my opinion, he probably needs to come back. But will he have a spot to play? Wenyon Gabriel, I thought he had a great year. He's one of those guys that you wish would stick around because he is one of those multi-year players that's getting better, and you kind of need those guys for the leadership aspect. But, maybe he could see transferring someplace where he gets to play more and maybe is a bigger part of somebody else's team than what he gets to be at UK. Jared Vanderbilt, we didn't get to see him at his best this year because even when he played, he was still hindered a little bit.
Injury, yeah.
So is he a guy that comes back? He's made a lot of people's NBA draft lists probably as a second rounder. Is that something he wants to do? Is he another guy that sees, hey, the new guys are coming in and they're going to take all the playing time, so I'd better go while I have the chance? I don't know what everybody thinks when they're trying to make that decision, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And one thing, if you're a UK fan, that might make you like E.J. Montgomery even better is that he was asked, how he or who he styles his game after, and he says that he tries to model his game after Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that was one of those something he actually tries to do, or if he's trying to win a little favor with the fan base by throwing Anthony Davis's name out there. But yeah, it would be awesome as a UK fan to think yeah, we're going to have another Anthony Davis maybe, a guy that can play inside and step outside and shoot the 15-footer a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean that'd be fantastic, and there's no doubt about it that he was huge on UK's success and winning that other national championship.
Yeah, he had a national championship with that team, but again, you look back to that group, and yes, they had Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and all those guys, but they also had some players who had stuck around a little bit, and I think that makes a difference. You got to have a couple of those
I agree with you,
leaders that just, when you get in a timeout, you get in the huddle late in the game, and the game's on the line. It can't always be the coach to sit there and
leaders and
inspire everybody. It's got to be his teammates that step in and take charge and
get some court miles underneath you,
and say, we're going to get this done. Let's go do it.
Yeah, it's a different game from high school to college, and so
Well, and one thing we talked about with this past year's group is that we saw the steady improvement and the rise of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. He went from a guy that was almost an afterthought. He didn't start when the season started, but as the year went on, he not only became a starter, now he's the highest-rated NBA draft pick out of this group. And it's because he got out there and he went to 6 a.m. practices on his own and made himself a better player.
He worked for him.
And not all these other guys were out there with him, at least most of the season. They didn't kind of jump on board that train until late. And, that gets back to the players have to lead. It has to be a player that does all the extra stuff that kind of encourages everyone to do the extra work. It can't be a coach saying, "Hey guys, you need to go work on your own," because the coaches can only work with the players so many hours a week. After that, it's up to each player to put their own time in.
Sure. And you've been on teams before. You see a guy out there working on his own. He's like, man, I better get out there.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I better, man.
That does inspire you to want to work harder, especially if you want to play.
Definitely. So, you hate when guys do that. No, I'm kidding. But I got to get out there too. But you're exactly right. You better, if you see somebody that, especially in your same spot or whatever, you better get out there and try to match them. One for one or exceed them.
Well, sometimes the biggest competition is on your own team for playing time.
No doubt.
And, some people take that challenge and some people see the writing on the wall and, go someplace else.
They certainly do. That's big-time stuff. There'll be some more moving and shaking, I'm sure. And did we just Cal just landed that one kid, didn't he?
Just last week.
Last week, yeah.
And I think it came down to UK and Duke.
Yeah.
So a lot of the guys have been going to Duke.
He was another 5-star type recruit.
At one point, Duke had far and away the best recruiting class, for next season. Mm-hmm. But Calipari has gone to work and has gotten a couple of guys, and now he's got 4 5-stars, depending on which service you look at. One of them might be a 4, but it's
they're an elite player.
they are. I don't know if they are ranked quite as high as the Duke class, but it's right behind it now. It's really close.
Yeah. What is North Carolina and some of these other pretty powerhouses come into play? Are they right there as well?
Oh yeah. And it's like I said before. You can talk about recruiting classes, whether it's basketball or football, and nobody's hanging a banner because of their recruiting class.
Right.
It's in football, and at UK, I think they've had a top 20 recruiting class for a couple of years running, and you're like, well, that's great, but if top 20 in football usually means you're like 11 or 12 in the Southeastern Conference because everybody's in the top 20.
Yeah.
And same thing here. Duke, for like 3 years running, I think, has had the number 1 ranked recruiting class in basketball. They haven't won that many championships.
And a lot of it's chemistry, a lot of it's coaching, a lot of it's luck of the draw, a lot of it's, there's a lot of factors that play into. You can't really go by that.
And we heard so much this year about Villanova having those guys that had stuck around.
Yes.
Well, some of them are now leaving a little early too. Mm-hmm. So I think you have to have the really good players to compete. It's just tough to have, like this year's Kentucky team, where the entire team is so young that you just really don't have, like I said, that off-court leadership from inside the team, just inside the players. Exactly. It's got to come from the players, and it can't always be the coaches making guys work and get better.
No, you're exactly right. So, be interesting to see, and that's always fun to toss around and to talk about. UK's football team, spring game, right?
Spring game is Friday night, I believe. So
yeah. So it's we can start thinking about football.
Yeah, I haven't quite got to that point yet, but it seems like baseball and softball just started, and well, in some instances, softball has just started because of the weather.
Yeah. 4 games in.
Yeah, and I think 3 of those were within the last week or so.
Exactly.
Went over 2 weeks without a game just because of the weather, but able to pick it up now. And like we said, big game tonight for the Lady Tigers. Lady Tigers have never won the All-A Classic Second Region Championship. I don't know if they'll ever have a better chance than tonight against Dawson Springs. Kudos to Dawson for getting there.
Yes.
A couple of big wins over UHA and Fort Campbell for them. But I think the Lady Tigers, with those wins over Livingston and Crittenden County, looking like a pretty heavy favorite, at least to me, in that game. And then you look at baseball, and again, anything can happen. That's why we play the games.
Yeah.
But I think the Tigers definitely the favorite going into that game. It's at UHA, so UHA is playing on its home field. UHA has its number 1 pitcher going, but the Tigers are in a situation where, yes, I mean, Shane Burns is the number 1 guy for the pitching staff. He's the ace. It would surprise me if anybody in the second region beats him out for the Region Player of the Year this year. But the Tigers still think they're pretty good, whoever they put out there.
No,
they've got 5 or 6 pitchers that they think if they put them on the mound, they can go play with anybody.
I think that's probably pretty accurate.
Sometimes teams get caught up in that, well, if we've got our pitcher, we're good.
Briar Riley's solid. When they bring in, Stallings has pitched well. When they bring in, Bryce is a solid closer.
Felker
can do it. Just think if we had Ty where he'd be able to pitch, he
right?
wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, he hasn't been able to throw much this year. He's been able to bat, but hasn't been able to pitch. And of course, that would be a big blow to a lot of teams. This team can absorb that blow a little bit. Would much rather have him, but at least the Tigers are in a situation where they still have pitching.
And he got his bat.
Yes.
Yeah, because he swings a good bat. So, but yeah, we're blessed with pitching. We certainly are. Solid defense and timely hitting, and that's how you win games.
Well, and what we need now is an extended period of good weather,
right?
So we can get some games in, because baseball and softball season goes by pretty quickly as it is. When you lose a couple of weeks because of weather, that really condenses things. And
we're into the stretch time here. I mean, it's coming down to the, we'll be into May before we know it. We're 2 weeks away from May,
and then the end of May is district tournament time.
Exactly.
So, baseball and softball, it's kind of like you come out of basketball season. I always say basketball season is a bit of a marathon
because about a week and a half,
and then boom, baseball and softball hits, and they're kind of condensed into about 2 months as it is. Yeah. So it goes by quick.
It certainly does. Well, we wish them luck tonight. It's going to be fun, and you'll be at the softball game.
Yes.
Gary's at the baseball game, and then we're going to cover baseball tonight on the air. We'll be on shortly before 6, and Bob Hayes will have the call for you tonight here on WPKY and streaming online at WPKYonline.com.
And the tennis teams from Caldwell County are supposed to play at Webster County today, and then there's a home match Friday against University Heights Academy on the schedule.
Yep, and they're coming off the girls' good wins at Union County.
Yes.
Girls only, so.
Yeah, the Lady Tigers are undefeated in team matches this season so far, so that's good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So.
And, I've actually talked about this with a lot of people over the last couple of weeks about what an unprecedented run we're kind of in as far as Caldwell County sports goes. You look at the football team, it's been ranked in the top 10, a lot of times the top 5 in the state for 4 or 5 years running now. You look at the tennis teams have been right there in the thick of it. They've won a bunch of regional championships over the last few years. Baseball team has never had a run where it's won back-to-back second region championships. We talk about the state runner-up showing in the All-A Classic last year. I think the Tigers are certainly right there again this year. Right now they look like the best team in the second region overall, not just the All-A Classic, but overall. Again, you still have to go do it on the field. Rankings don't win you anything, but it's nice to be considered. And when you look at the talent that's there, I mean, they appear to be at the top of the region again this year.
No doubt.
Softball's coming into its own. I think it's going to have an incredible year this year and could be better next year because a lot of those kids are juniors and younger kids. Volleyball is always at the top of the region. I think soccer is always right there with winning records, and the girls were in the region championship game last year. It just goes on, and that doesn't happen. It's not like Caldwell County is a great big school. And I think sometimes we get caught up in, we'd like to play for state championships and everything. And, I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
But when you compare Caldwell County to a lot of schools that are similar sized, I think Caldwell County's athletic success stacks up well against most of them.
Yeah, I would say you're exactly correct. And, a lot of this has to do with the extra work these kids put in on the off season, some of these traveling teams they play with, the commitment of the parents.
Oh, yeah.
To take them to special practices, special lessons, extra workouts. It's a combination of things. Of course, it's changed a lot since when you and I were in school. You went the whole year. You didn't have all these traveling teams. You didn't do all this stuff. You didn't have as many sports, but you just waited till your season came along. You started practicing and getting into shape. Maybe had a little bit of a preseason, get into shape time. But that was it. But now there's so many of these. It's an all-year deal. These softball
for
players,
every sport.
Yeah, these softball players, these baseball players, it's an all-year deal for the most part.
Yeah, you have to put in the time.
Yeah, and the multi-sport athletes, yes, it's a little harder, but there's arguments, should they not play multi-sports? A lot of arguments for multi-sports. It keeps you into shape. It keeps your muscles moving. It causes less injury, perhaps.
It's a weird dynamic because you'll hear college coaches say they want their kids to play multiple sports in high school because it makes them better overall athletes. However, if you listen to travel coaches or those kind of people, they'll all say you need to play a sport year-round to get noticed in that sport, to get better at that sport, and to have a chance to get a scholarship in that sport. So I think maybe something in between is probably more accurate. I mean, if someone likes playing one sport and wants to play it year-round, we go back to Emma Taffy, who won 3 state championships.
Basically 4.
I mean,
yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah.
But I mean, how many schools have done that? I mean, you had somebody from Caldwell County do that. That's part of that run that we've been on now for several years in Caldwell County.
Certainly.
That you just don't see it a lot of places. No. And she obviously picked the right sport. She obviously loves playing golf, but she was a good enough athlete. She could have played basketball and helped the basketball team. She could have played softball and helped the softball team. I mean, you can't do everything, and again, obviously, she made the right choice. So again, I think it comes down to the individual and what do you want to do. But you kind of hate to see kids not get a chance to do some other things because you only get to be a high school athlete once.
Yes.
And kind of want to spread it around. And I even think if you're a Caldwell County or a smaller school, you need your better athletes to play multiple sports to try to compete in those sports. Just because you only have X number of those outstanding athletes, and it's difficult when you start playing just the one sport for the other teams to have that success too. And again, if you look at Caldwell County, kind of a situation where we've had that success and been able to spread it out a little bit and still have teams that are competitive in most sports.
Yep. Well said. Well said. Have we covered everything on the list?
I think we've gone through every note, and
that's awesome.
Just big games
and
tonight.
Right on time.
Yeah. The All-Lake Classic Championships. It's Championship Thursday.
Yes.
And then the season continues. The Tigers are at Lyon County on Friday. Baseball and softball will play Dawson Springs here. As we mentioned at the top of the show, Lady Tigers are going to play Dawson Springs in the All-Lake Classic final tonight, and then we'll play Dawson Springs in a regular season game here tomorrow. So that's how the schedule works out sometimes. It wasn't really planned that way originally. It's the district game was earlier this year and it got rained out. One of those games that was a victim of the rain, so you had to try to work it in someplace.
Work it in someday. That's where it popped up. Well, we're about 16 after the hour. Todd, it's been fun. We talked wrestling. We've had other people talk wrestling. and it's just fun to do that. And I can't wait till next week. We're going to do our tag teams, correct?
Yes, our top 5 favorite tag teams of all time. And
so you guys out there that participated in the wrestling today, put your thinking caps on.
This could actually be pretty interesting because you can go some different ways with the tag teams than
you can. Yeah, you can. And I'm just hearkening back now in my head. So I've got some plans. I'm gonna have to do some research on this one.
Okay.
I kind of put my list together pretty quick, but I think I'm gonna research this one just a little bit. I'll need help on that. So.
And like I said, there were guys we didn't even mention in pro wrestlers that.
And we had some good input.
Yes.
From you all out there, and we certainly appreciate your input and encourage you to participate next week in the Sideline Report when we do. This is just our favorite tag teams. Just our favorites.
Yes.
Yeah. Just
top five favorite tag teams.
Yeah. So
for next week.
For next week. So tune in again, and we'll probably be on schedule next week. Of course, we had Representative 4th District Lynn Beckler here, and went a little over, but that's okay. We need to do that sometimes. And so we got our hour in today here on the Sideline Report today. 2 minutes past 10 o'clock. So, Todd, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Enjoyed it.
See you out at the yard.
Yes.
All right. That's going to wrap it up again. Go Tigers today. And every day, of course. And thank you for listening to the Sideline Report here on your hometown radio station, WPKY The Tiger. Todd and I appreciate your support and hope you'll tune in next week at 9:03. It's the Sideline Report. Check out the Times Leaders, of course, Wednesday and Saturday editions each and every week for the best sports coverage around. That's going to do it for us. Have a great Thursday, everybody. For Todd Griffin, Ty Engelbright. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening to the Sideline Report, brought to you by the Times leader, Todd Griffin, in studio to get us up to date on everything Caldwell County sports. So be sure to tune in at 9:03.